London is ready for the final stage of the PruTour. It's 74 riders preparing now to race to the end in style. The crowds who have marked this race with such enthusiasm are ready too for one last performance, while a party atmosphere keeps everyone in good mood in Holborn Bars. Well, all of the world's top international stage races do their best to finish in their capital city, and the PruTour, in its first year of being, is absolutely no exception. The race now in London for the finish in Holborn Bars, and this, by the way, is Waterhouse Square, home of Prudential, who only yesterday celebrated the 150th anniversary. But before we go to the action, let's have a look over what has been the most interesting week of the PruTour and see just how Stuart O'Grady came here wearing the leader's red jersey. The 1,500 kilometres event all began from Stirling Castle over a week ago. The 107 riders last to start was Chris Boardman in the 4.2 kilometres time trial. All the pressure of the day was on him. He was a second faster than George Hincapie at halfway, and by the finish he'd done it. He was the first leader of the Tour. It was a perfect start for Gann, for Boardman and for Britain. Then stage one, taking the riders 207 kilometres from Edinburgh across to Newcastle via Carter Bar. This is a high-speed show now. Newcastle's ready for the arrival of the 19 leaders as they made their way into Grey Street. This again was looking very much a perfect day for Gann and Chris Boardman's team. Boardman, Stuart O'Grady had made the front group, and then a few kilometres from the finish, it was the Frenchman on Festina, Laurent Lefebvre, who went clear. Boardman took it upon himself to go after him. The crowd shouted Chris Boardman's name. He caught him, he passed him, and he beat him, all in the last 500 metres of the day. Two stages, and the winner the same. Chris Boardman had increased his lead. Then it was on to stage two as the riders made their way past the Angel of the North, leaving Gateshead and bound for York. The highlight of the day, the North Yorkshire Moors and the climb of Rosedale Chimney. This was an absolute brute. Many of the riders were shocked, and one of those was Rob Hales of the Bright Voice team. A British track champion, he found the slopes very hurtful indeed. Up front though, Jonathan Waters of the US Postal and USA, he was leading 4 riders away. But at one stage, 8 minutes behind on this 170 kilometre stage, and Stuart O'Grady and Chris Boardman were now fighting back into the picture. Before they got to the finish at York, they were right at the head of affairs, and now they were discussing who should win. Boardman told O'Grady to go for it. O'Grady won. And Stuart O'Grady not only won, he got the race lead. There was no animosity when the red jersey left Chris Boardman to the shoulders of Stuart O'Grady. On to stage 3, Manchester to Blackpool, 187 kilometres, the first rain of the race. A missing direction arrow after the leaders had passed by and the main field were lost. They were somewhere in Clitheroe. It was all put right by the time the race came down to the Blackpool Pleasure Beach finish, and it was Australian Jay Sweet getting his first win of the year, but it was Stuart O'Grady finishing just behind in third who kept his overall lead. Stage 4, 154 kilometres, saw the riders roll away from the Rue D and down Chester's Foregate Street. They were bound for Nottingham via the Peak District climb of the Cat and Fiddle. And by the time they got there, it was Kevin Dawson of Great Britain leading Julian Wynne of Wales. Lower down the slopes, though, danger man Darius Baranowski was on the attack. It wasn't to be for him. A back wheel puncture, frustration, and watch the race go by. At the finish, though, Julian Wynne was ecstatic. A win for Wales. Stage 5 between Birmingham and Cardiff, and a tragedy hit the race. Just outside of Worcester, the death of a police escorting officer in collision with a car. The riders understood fully when they were told the racing was suspended for the day. Everybody on the race was very, very sad. The next morning at College Green in Bristol, the riders and officials joined with the police in 2 minutes of silence. So to stage 6 from Bristol onto Reading, 147 kilometres. The race was a flash of brilliant colour. And at the finish, it was a flash too from Russian champion Vyacheslav Yekimov, winning by a second. But O'Grady had finished second and won all the sprints along the route. He was now 36 seconds ahead overall. And so to the weekend, and there was a massive crowd awaiting the race on Box Hill. It was to be the picture of the day. Big crowds all the way down to the city of Rochester, where the race would finish. And by the time they got there, two GAN teammates, Baxter on the right, O'Grady on the left, both thought they won. They'd given the victory, though, to Stuart O'Grady. He'd increased his overall lead even more, and GAN were now cruising towards victory overall. And so the situation as the riders arrive in London for the final stage in Holborn. O'Grady leads Chris Boorman by 46 seconds. Darius Baranowski is third by 58 seconds. Neil Stevens of Australia lies fourth, and Tyler Hamilton of the United States is fifth.
Stuart, you've had this jersey for quite a few days now, just one last race to go. How do you feel?
Oh, I'm feeling very good. Team's super motivated. They've done a lot of work over the last 1,000 or so kilometres, and today we're just going to come here and enjoy the crowd and atmosphere and make sure we don't do anything silly.
This will be your first stage race victory as a professional rider, and it's been quite fun wearing the jersey over the last few days.
Yeah, it's been awesome. I mean, the higher you're placed on general classification, the less work you have to do. So, sounds pretty good. The guys have just done, put a lot of confidence in me over the last week, and so far everything's gone according to plan. And yeah, I'll be rapt to if I can clean this tour up.
Well, the last course they all face is 80 kilometres. It's a 1.6 kilometre circuit. It takes in some of London's most famous city roads: Chancery Lane, Fleet Street, New Fetter Lane, and with the start and finish in Holborn Bars. Well, Paul, it's a smaller field, in fact, that left Stirling, isn't it?
It certainly is, but of all these riders who've remained in the PruTour, it's going to be a very fast finale, because this is a fast circuit around here in the centre of the city of London, and you can be sure that the GAN team will be on the front almost as soon as the flag comes in.
And starting outside the Prudential building, the riders get a neutralised lap, first of all, to get the feel of things, and then before a huge crowd here, it's a beautiful warm day, they will get into the action. There's Magnus Backstedt in that green jersey. The green jersey on loan from Stuart O'Grady, because he leads in the red jersey competition and in the green jersey competition, which is also for the race on points.
A very tight pack coming around the corner here at the moment. The first lap, in fact, is neutralised. It just gives the riders a chance to see what sort of a course they'll be facing. But once they get up to speed, they'll be negotiating these corners very quickly indeed. And I couldn't see one of the corners where they would need to brake. There is the starter's flag. That's the official start to the race after the first neutralised circuit.
And now, as I'm sure will happen, the riders will get on with the action here, because there is a big crowd and they will want to show everybody just how quick they can really pedal these bicycles. Remember the race, some 1,500 kilometres, bringing them down from Stirling and then into England, across to Wales and back into England again. And this for them is a big showpiece now, a grand finale. We don't really expect O'Grady to be put under too much pressure, Paul. This now really is something like a lap of honour for him.
It's difficult under pressure when he's got a team like this. Riding on the front now is Eros Poli. He's going to give the lead over now to Jens Voigt, and then it will be the new rider they have on the squad there, Marcel Gono. These riders will ride at the front for about an hour of this event, keeping it very high indeed. They'll try and nullify all the attacks, and certainly I don't see anybody strong enough. The rider on the US Postal Service squad, who's in third place in the overall standings, Baranowski, I think will just be happy to stay there.
Well, the GAN team, led here by Jens Voigt in that mauve jersey, as leader of the sprint competition. There's only, in fact, 2 points separating him in that competition to his teammate, Stuart O'Grady, who could really go for the hat-trick. I don't think in practice he would dare to take that jersey away from Jens.
I don't think so. I've joked actually over the last couple of days with Jens about that, and I said to him, the only thing you can do really is, if you can see the red jersey coming up the side, just put him into the barriers. He says, well, I think I might have to do that today.
Well, Poli on the front, a former Olympic and world time trial champion in his amateur days, now a highly successful professional rider. He'll be one of the main men in the team for the Tour de France for his known ability as a great workhorse. A stage winner in the Tour de France, by the way, which he won on the crossing of Mont Ventoux, the giant of Provence, which is quite amazing, really, because Eros Poli is not a climber. He told us at the time, if you remember, Paul, he'd gone out front to look at the women.
He'd gone out front to get a good look at the crowd that had turned out, but also to get a little bit of an advantage to go over the Mont Ventoux with at least a chance of getting to the finish, and it ended up he built up a lead lead of almost 20 minutes, and then nobody could catch him, and it was a great victory by him, the man who has been a great team time trialist in the past, and I should think really one of the great riders on the GAN squad here.
Well, Eros met his Australian wife in 1988 in Australia, just after he arrived there with a gold medal from the Seoul Olympic Games. And since then, he's learned to speak fluent English, or I suspect I should say fluent Australian. But for that reason, he's one of our favourites as well.
He certainly is. He's always got a few words to say to the camera. A little bit of disorganisation at the front here. You can see a lot of riders queuing up. I think what they want to do for the moment is allow the GAN team to keep the pressure on, and once they start to fade towards the latter part of the race, we'll see a lot more riders coming to the front to put in the attacks. Already the Danish riders at the front here, but I would expect a little later on the Team Bright Voice to come to the front, because they are very good at this kind of circuit racing.
Well, they've got Johnny Clay on the team, a former Criterium champion. And this rider at the front at the moment is from Denmark. They're bringing 4 of the 6 men to the finish here in Holborn. They had a little bit of bad luck losing 2 men in the closing stages of the event. And Ireland too are now seeing the front as well. They are finishing 5 of their 6 riders. So remember, riders like Ireland thinking of bigger races for them, and they're going to say thank you for the experience that they've been offered here in the PruTour.
Amazing to see Eros Poli there. He let those 2 riders come to the front, have a little bit of glory in the front of the main field at the last stage of the PruTour here, but then once the serious business happened, he just picked up the pace and took over the reins once more. But it looks as if there's a slight problem at the back here for one of the Bright Voice riders. It may well be that that was a flat tyre, as he was looking at the neutral service car, the yellow car, which looks after all of the riders. But at the front, there's no change at all. It's still in control of the GAN team.
And trying to break that control, Neil Stevens having a dig down the outside. You won't keep Stevens in that pack for long if he gets half a chance. He's a very aggressive rider. He's coming up towards his best form now, ready for the Tour de France, which is only 5 weeks away. So Stevens is on the attack. Let's join Paul Sherwin now in the pits with Roger Leger.
Well, Roger, in the pits here, it's a little bit of chaos as the race gets underway, but you seem to have a very good plan for your riders this afternoon.
Yes, because we have the overall, we are first and second, and it's necessary we have no scare, because the circuit is short and is around 1 minute 40, 2 minutes, and it's necessary no scare. So all the team with Marcel Gonneau, Eros Poli, Jen Vogt work all time on the front, and with high speed, with we hope no scare.
Well, watch out, because Neil Stevens is the boy giving them a real tough time at the moment. This is now the 6th circuit of the city here, and Stevens has gone again.
Well, Neil Stevens certainly is the kind of rider who wants to get out and show himself in front of the crowd. He knows he has a lot of supporters here in the UK at the moment, but for him it's also important to try and get out and get some bonus seconds as well, because he's currently lying 4th in the overall standings, and over the last few days he's told me on numerous occasions that he wants to climb up into 3rd slot.
Well, I'll tell you what, he's going to be pretty pleased with his 9 days of racing here on the PruTour, Neil Stevens. He had problems with his Achilles tendon, and he's had operations galore in his last few months, but it looks as though he's getting back into it now. Anyway, the race, I think, is on him. It is all coming back together, and it could well soon be one big bunch again. We'll take a break.
Welcome back. The final stage of the PruTour was not the only event to be raced on the circuit today. Holborn Bar was also host to a top international women's event, with some of the world's best taking part. Riders from Europe, Australia, and even one competitor from Singapore battled out to win the richest women's event ever organised in the UK.
But this is the experience of the Dutch team here. Debbie Mansveld, a youngster from Holland who last year got 5th in a national championship and 8th place in the world championship, towards the end out on the attack. And they know how to control a bunch back in Holland. This is their type of racing, closed circuits before big crowds. The men do it to great success, and so it appears do the women now. Debbie Mansfield, never under pressure, wins by some 18 seconds across the line. The main field spinning it out. The orange jerseys are the riders from Holland, in on the race for 2nd place as well. And bursting for the line, Arenda Grimberg getting there. She snatches a clear 2nd place, and coming home for Switzerland in 3rd place, Sylvia Zoller.
Deborah, that was a difficult way to win the race going out so early.
Yes, but we all drive very good race, all 4 of us, and we were attacking. So after a sprint I went, I thought, oh, they kept me back, but I stay in the front. It was very nice to drive here with all of the people standing and clapping in their hands. It's very nice.
It's nice to get a big win.
Yes, it's always nice to win.
Indeed, this was the richest women's event ever held in Great Britain. Now back to the men's race, and they are approaching their first time bonus sprint of their round the circuit of Holborn. And look at this, Paul, the Gam boys are right at the front with Jonathan Waters hunting on the far right.
Interesting to see Waters riding so close to the front. This is the man who has won the King of the Mountains competition. Now he's looking to try and get himself a few points and also a little bit of money along the way. He's come out to the front for the US Postal Service team, but the Gan riders in the white jerseys are not going to let him get too far off the front.
Well, Waters coming out of this race very strongly indeed. Oh my goodness me, he really did nearly go out of the race there. Completely misjudged that corner. He was looking to get his feet off those clips, or not clips these days, but the clip-on pedals they use, and he got away with it, but only just.
He did, but the confusion there has allowed John Clay and Chris Newton to get about 3 or 4 seconds over the main field. Stirring it up at the front, the purple jersey is that jersey on the shoulders of Jens Voigt, but this I think could give the two Bright Voice riders first and second place in that sprint, and that was a very nasty move by Jonathan Waters, and a good move, I suppose, to keep it upright.
Well, the result they want here is for Clay to lead Newton, and Newton to take the sprint here for a time bonus, because he could move up 1 place overall, and Chris Newton, I think, is aware of that, and Johnny Clay is going to try and lead him out now. Clay is brilliant at riding circuit races. He's a very good all-round bike rider. He's won national titles on the track as well as on the road. He's pulled Chris Newton away into a good lead now. 3 seconds time bonus for the winner. 2 and 1 will be the order, and Newton is looking for the 3 seconds.
They've opened up a very good gap indeed there. All of that because of the confusion of Jonathan Waters going round the corner there, pulling his foot out, controlling it just a little bit, and now the Gan team will concern themselves with going to the front, keeping the speed high, and not allowing these two riders to move to increase their gap too much.
Well, this is the biggest lead we've seen since the race began, and here comes Newton, as we expected, around the back from his teammates. He will get a 3 seconds bonus. He's heading up to 1 place higher on the overall with that. Clay over in second place. This is the sprint for third slot, and it looks like Julian Wynne, the man who won the stage at Nottingham for Wales, is still feeling very frisky indeed. He gets third.
After that win by Julian Wynne a couple of days ago, he really has improved and started to be so much more aggressive. He's been all of the moves. He's been looking for points in the King of the Mountains competition.
Well, this is the most interesting breakaway here for the two Bright Voice boys. We're down in the pits. Somebody looks like he's given up the race. Let's go to Paul.
Bit of a rough final stage for the Tour.
Yeah, it was. I just got too far back, and hard day yesterday, so called it a day.
What's the speed like out there?
It was pretty hard. Like, you got Gan on the front just lapping, and if you get too far back, it's just one line and you're just holding on.
So this race tough right up until the very end, and bad luck there for Scott Guyton. It looks too as though it's bad luck for the two boys from Bright Voice, Newton and Clay. They are now caught and being put back in the pack, but there are still plenty of riders here trying to rip off the front and steal a march over the Vigilant field today.
Certainly is an excellent circuit to try and get away, but all of the time the Gan riders at the front.
Well, let's go down to Simon O'Brien now. He's found us at the Natural Theatre Company.
You say the cycling attracts some strange characters. Well, none stranger than the Natural Theatre group. You've been with the tour all week, haven't you? Are you enjoying it?
Yeah, very much so. I mean, we're contracted for the whole of the PruTour, and we'll be doing lots of different characters, as you can see. This is just a small sample, if you like, of the different characters we do.
That's right. Yes, we've been staying in some lovely B&Bs on the way as well, which has been nice, isn't it?
You did all the cleaning, didn't you?
I did all the cleaning. I've been cleaning the start line. I've been cleaning everybody. I've been really hard.
She really has scrubbed away. He doesn't talk much, I'm afraid.
Fine, thanks a lot, fella. And what about you, young man?
Well, I mean, this is the sort of thing I've come to expect from these kind of hippie gatherings, people on bikes running around. I mean, down with bikes, that's what I say, down with bikes. Join the anti-cycling.
Thank you so much.
Should you really be involved in the PruTour, mate, if you're not into cycling?
I have an extremely integral part of the PruTour. I'm here more as a stabiliser, if you will, to get these terrible gentlemen off their bikes and back into cars where we all belong.
But a lot of preparation put into it.
Oh, a lot of preparation, many hours of rehearsal.
I've been through 2 tubes of lipstick, lots
several
of
buckets of Ajax.
Oh, you.
Yes,
But you've enjoyed the experience?
Oh, it's been Yes, it's been wonderful, hasn't it? Absolutely wonderful.
I've seen some firm tanned thighs.
Yes, we've seen Chris Boardman. We saw Chris Boardman last night with his nappy on. We saw that, didn't we?
Yes.
Yes.
Come on, admit it. You've enjoyed yourself, haven't you?
Well, I do like Stan Boardman, yes. I find him very interesting.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Well, there was one gentleman there, looked more confused than Simon, I think. But let's get back to the race now, because we're heading for the second sprint of the day and more time bonuses as we go out now onto lap number 20. Basically, the field is together, Paul, but this looks like Alan Yaquani going clear.
Alan Yaquani's had a very hard tour over the last few days. He's been trying to get up there. Normally the kind of rider who is very aggressive. He's looked for the move here, and he's managed to slip out of the Gann stranglehold, because the Gann riders have been on the front of this race since the very first lap, keeping the speed high. Occasionally riders have managed to get clear, and at the moment Alan Yaquani has stolen about 10 seconds advantage on the rest.
Well, former champion of Australia, a very popular bike rider, and a good one, I might add. He hasn't quite had the luck this week, though. He was the rider, if you've been following us here on Sky, you may remember, fell down in the middle of the pack when our helicopter was looking straight at him. He picked himself up, he's attacked ever since, and now he's having another dig and he's hurting himself. Yaquani then going clear now and trying to hang on at least to get the 3 seconds time bonus. That in itself isn't going to help him very much, but at least he can win the sprint and make himself a few bob.
That's what he's trying to do at the moment. Looking back in the main field, you can see a very big long line. Everyone just trying to stay on the wheel right in front of them. The bright voiced riders at the back at the moment trying, I think, to reorganize themselves to do something a little later on. Alan Yaquani has got to the final corner here, and coming up to join him, Nick Craig, rather more at home on the mountain bike circuit, but I think having a very good time here in the PruTour.
Absolutely. Nicky Craig, a former cyclocross champion, I'll tell you what, he has really taken to this race. He's ridden extremely well, and now he's trying to get to the front and beat Alan Yaquani in the sprint here. Now, Alan's prepared to work with him. 2 is better than 1 against the rest of the field. If Alan can take a few deep breaths and just grit his teeth and get hold of that back wheel of Nicky Craig, covered, because the art of big-time stage racing is the art of recuperation. They are the men who succeed in this type of racing, and Nicky Craig now bringing them into the sprint straight.
Great move by Nicky Craig. He really has enjoyed this race here. He's leading out the sprint, but hasn't quite got the experience of Alan Yaquani there. You can see the Australian coming through the inside, accelerating up to the line. The most important thing for these two riders now is to keep working together to try and build up a lead over the rest of the main field, led across there by Jens Voigt.
And that single point there for the end of the sprint group, I think, is enough now for Jens to say he's going to keep that mauve jersey. There was no sign of Stuart O'Grady at all, and so that means that O'Grady is now 3 points behind Jens Voigt in the overall competition, with 1 sprint left to come. So the big crowd here enjoying a magnificent spectacle in the city of London. The PruTour is on its way home, but we'll be back. Don't go away. And welcome back to the closing stages of the PruTour. This is now lap 26 here in Holborn. The riders turning on the style here. It's high-speed racing at its very best, but no one has yet been able to get clear of the field. The Gann team are in control. Well, let's go to Simon O'Brien now, because he's got with him the Prudential's Claire Salmon, a prime mover in this event.
Claire, this is your baby, the PruTour. Have you been happy with how it's gone?
We've been delighted. We've been really thrilled. We've had huge crowds along the route. We've had sensational racing on the road, and the atmosphere amongst the team, everybody involved in the race has been marvellous.
Well, I'd just like to say on behalf of all the people watching, thanks very much. We thoroughly enjoyed it.
Thank you very much.
And quickly back to Paul Sherwin with Julian Wynne.
Yeah. Julian, what's the problem?
Crank came off.
Quick bike change there.
A bit of a quick bike change, yeah.
You got a lap out, just relax a bit.
All right. Never mind.
Julian, tell us quickly, what's the speed out like there?
Bloody fast. 30 mile an hour plus, mate. Grovelling in the gutter.
What's this going to do to you, a lap out? Difficult?
Well, I'm going to have to get my rhythm back, but I'm going to get straight back to the front and I'm going to attack straight away.
Good luck then.
Cheers.
Well, one thing this race has done his morale a power of good. Since he won that stage at Nottingham, he's a different bike rider, and he's shown he's nothing to fear in this PruTour. Right now on lap number 29 here, as the field continue to stretch and recoil, but at the end of the day, they're not actually getting away from the field. By the way, they get a lap out if they do have a mechanical problem. That's just to explain the rule. But the bell now is indicating the third and final sprint of the PruTour. Remember, Chris Newton won the first one, Alan Yakwani of Australia the second, and now this is the third and final one. And then Jens Voigt can breathe a sigh of relief.
South African rider on the front trying to stay there for the next lap because he too would like to get those points as they go across the line. But the main field really now being led by the Big Mat Aubert team from France, picking up the speed, trying to challenge the dominance that really Gann have had since the start.
Well, absolutely. The Big Mat team from France, of course, they are not yet part of the selection for the Tour de France. For a French team, that is something of a blow. So they're anxious to put up a big impression here, and then they hope that the Tour de France will sit up and take notice when they name the rest of the field in a few weeks' time. Right now, they've ridden very well in this race, and it looks as though that trend is continuing.
Jens Voigt, though, has been very attentive now. He's in third position in the mauve jersey as leader of this competition. His closest challenger, his own teammate Stuart O'Grady, and I don't think O'Grady's going to make a move for this. But if Jens Voigt can get just one more little point, then he's going to take that jersey back to Germany, and a very happy man as well.
So Voigt keeping an eye on who's around him and making sure he's in a nice place there in third place to keep an eye on affairs. He's keeping the Big Mat Aubervilliers boys just on the helm, doing the pacemaking. That'll do him nicely as they continue to work away there. The man setting the pace is the big sprinter of the team as far as the overall has been going, Carlos da Cruz. He's ridden extremely well, and now he moves across. It looks as though he's blown a little bit as I spoke about him, because he's swung out of it, and his teammate now looks a little bit confused and doesn't quite know what to do about this one, but it's all opening up again, and it looks as though we've got Stefan Berge in the thick of it now, another man for the Big Mat team, so they might get the winner out of this, although it wasn't quite the way they wanted it to work. Berge is coming clear. He will get the 3 seconds time bonus, and in the sprint for second place, it's gone to the Big Mat teammate as well. So a 1-2 for Big Mat over the line. Voigt, I placed fourth, so that will do him nicely to give him the overall situation. So it was Berge, da Cruz, the two Big Mat boys, Baranowski taking third place, and fourth was Voigt, and as a result of that, a clear win in the sprint competition for Jens Voigt from his teammate Stuart O'Grady, and Julian Wynne getting up into third place. And Julian Wynne promising us there that he would attack and get in the points, and he has done just that. Well, let's go to Simon O'Brien, because he's found someone now who is enjoying the PruTour very much indeed.
I found myself a very proud man, Brian O'Grady. You mightn't recognise him, but you certainly would his son. You must be absolutely chuffed to bits with Stuart's performance.
It's been amazing, yeah, really fantastic. I certainly picked a great time to come over to Europe, didn't I? No?
Have they had you busy?
Oh, absolutely, working my guts out, man. Driving these French blokes all over Europe, oh, it's unbelievable. But that's been an amazing learning experience too. It's been fantastic, and a great honour to be part of an absolute top-class world team. It's, yeah, really amazing.
How's it felt, though, every day when you just watch Stuart just slowly pile on the pressure and pile on the points? You must just be elated.
Yeah, I am a bit that way, I suppose you could say. Yeah, we had a few local South Australian red wines last night in anticipation of the fact that we might need to behave ourselves tonight. But we probably won't anyway.
But how was the South Australian wine over here?
How was it?
Yeah.
Oh, typical South Australian, bloody beautiful.
I bet it was indeed, Brian. Well, back to the race now, just going clear here now. There's been an attack by Matt Illingworth, and the crowd are loving this, because Illingworth, Paul, is now hunting for the £1,000 anniversary prize.
Team Bright Boys have been looking to do something special every day. They have been a dominant factor in this PruTour, and if you can just hold on, that £1,000 first prize for the anniversary sprint is going to be very nice in your back pocket.
Well, going back to Sterling, which is now 9 days behind us, this man finished fourth in the prologue time trial. He found the going a little bit rough on the high climbs, but now he's back in his element here, and he's looking for the grand if he can get it. Watch that corner, it's a bit tricky. That's probably the most trickiest corner of the circuit, but normally, as you can see, the traffic comes down this road the opposite way.
Team on the front, and at the moment is the Big Mat Aubert team trying to pull it all back, but they've left it just a little bit too late, because in fact you can see Matt Illingworth is around about 10 seconds over the main field, and he's just got to hang on for around about 1 kilometre, and that £1,000 prize is going to go all the way back to the Bright Voice team.
Well, for those of us who have seen this team at race here daily at the front of the field, this £1,000 is well earned by a team that's lived with the best and have always dictated the pace when they've had the chance. Chris Walker particularly in action yesterday in the hills. He will finish second in the King of the Mountains competition. Now he's making his way towards the home straight, and a great crowd right around the circuit, and Matt Illingworth now is going to put £1,000 in the coffers of Bright Voice, and that is not to be sniffed at all.
He's taking a lot of risks going around those corners there. He knows he hasn't got to slow down the slightest amount, because if he does, then the main field will come right back from behind. He's pushing himself right to the limit every time. He's been going around this course now several times now, so he's looking over his shoulder just to make sure that he has got enough of an advantage coming up to the final 200 metres, and that's the corner he's been looking for just at the end of this straight now. A nice little left-hander, and he'll see the finish line and £1,000 in front of him.
He's taking no chances, and judging by the way he was looking there, those legs are screaming now. He's not thinking long term. He's certainly not thinking of the stage win. He's just thinking of £1,000 in a few meters time, and then you'll see what happens after that. But he's opened the gap. He's a very powerful rider when he rides alone, Matt Illingworth, and there the white line has given him the money. Here comes the race behind now, and it looks as though the acceleration once more is there. We've got New Zealand going out on the attack. I think it's Graham Miller, and we've got Jens Voigt on the front, as always. Uncle Jens controlling the rest.
Certainly has been a man of the match here all of the time over the last few days. We've been looking at that mauve jersey on the front of the main field, and it has been Jens Voigt. He really has done an awful lot of work in this main field, a lot of work for Gann to keep control. At the moment, they're starting to lose the grip just a little bit as these one or two riders go off the front, and I would think Keith Lambert, the team manager of the Bright Voice team, is going to be very happy with the performance of his man Matt Illingworth, because they've been so close on so many occasions throughout this PruTour.
Well, they were very close at York indeed, where O'Grady beat Johnny Clay to the line, and Clay could so easily have taken out the stage there after a great day across the North Yorkshire moors. And now, oh, that's not a grin coming from Matt Illingworth. That is pure pain there, as we do have this New Zealand rider trying to get across, and I think maybe it looks like it's Spencer who's trying to bridge the gap.
If he can just get onto the back wheel of Matt Illingworth there, then the two riders have got much more of a chance of holding off the main field, because still there's an awful lot of work being done at the front of this bunch by the Gann team.
Well, they're swinging back in towards the finishing straight, and Murray Spencer here is coming across very quickly. Well, I did say that I thought Illingworth would sit up after winning the £1,000. Maybe the field thought he'd do just that, and he's kept going. And now, as you say, Paul, if the Kiwi gets across, we've got two riders, and two riders are better than one.
They certainly are. You need somebody at this stage of the game to work very hard together to try and build up a lead over the main field. But the main field now picking up the pace, dragging them back together. It's only around about 5 or 6 seconds their advantage.
Well, Spencer just about on the back wheel now of Matt Illingworth. The main field is hunting them down, and my goodness me, they are going fast. I would say any minute now they're going to be back together, but the crowd are willing on now. The New Zealand, the British tandem here to try and hold off all of the field. No doubt Matt Illingworth is glad of a back wheel there for a few deep breaths, but the field is chasing them down, and it looks like it might well come together pretty soon. So Murray Spencer, big effort to get across, but the field now are right behind them, and we could be settling in yet for a bunch sprint. Don't go too far away, we'll take a break.
Welcome back to our coverage of the final stage of the PruTour. Now, going into the last 5 laps, every rider is worried because you can no longer come into the pit area here to change your wheels. But one man, Stuart O'Grady, certainly has a plan as he goes into the closing stages, and I talked to him earlier about it.
You know, I don't want to talk about it much, but the worst thing that could happen would be if something happened in the last 5 laps where you can't have a lap out with mechanical problems, and, you know, that'd cause a bit of a headache. But, you know, those kind of things we try not to think about too much, but, you know, we've got a plan ready in case it does happen. But, I mean, the worst thing that could happen is if, you know, one of the dangerous riders took off and got a lap. But, you know, we're going to do everything in our best interest that doesn't happen.
And that plan, I suppose, would be one of the other riders in the team to pass a bike to you. Who would that be? Because you couldn't take Eros Poli's bike.
No, not unless I wanted to sit on the top tube for the rest of the race. No, I'd have to go for Marcel Gono. I think he's only 3 centimetres taller than me, so I'll take his bike instead of a 2-metre giant like Eros or Magnus.
Great teamwork, and they know exactly what to do. We're now on lap number 47 here. Marcel Gona, who he's talking about, is the rider in white on the right of the picture. There he is, Paul, and it's a pity he's the same size as Stuart, because he might have finished the Tour.
In fact, Marcel Gona looked as if he was in a little bit of difficulty there, because he was swinging off having done a big hard turn at the front. What he has to do, in fact, is to stay in the race, because that is important if he's going to give his bike to Stuart O'Grady in the latter few laps there, to stay very close to him and make sure that he's right alongside if there is an incident. At the moment, though, you really have to take your hat off to the work that's being done at the front of this race by Jens Voigt.
Well, I think the GAN team this last 9 days has demonstrated to us all that they are now set for the Tour de France. Jens Voigt here, pile driving at the front. Well, he's looking for a vacant place on the team. There are, in fact, only 2 spaces left for GAN. He wants one of them. There are 4 riders in the hat for it. And this week, I think he might well have done enough to do that. But he's on the front now.
The GAN team have done an awful lot of work this afternoon, and now I think they'll be quite happy to see another team coming to the front to do some work. This is the Big Mat Aubert team from France, and they'll be trying to keep it all together and pick up the pace for their man Jay Sweet, who's a very fast finisher.
Well, they're going to feel pretty confident today, because they set it up for Jay Sweet at the Blackpool Pleasure Beach, and he came up with the goods there. And I don't want to preempt things too much, but Jay Sweet did say to me in Stirling he was looking for the victory when the race went down to lap number 48 now. The pace remains very, very hard indeed. And as the field come round yet again here, led by the Aubervilliers team, the GAN team settling nicely there, 2nd, 3rd, 5th and 6th. Well, down by the barriers too, we've got Paul Sherwin, and he perhaps can tell us how the boss feels, because he's not too far away from him.
Well, just a few laps to go before Stuart O'Grady does get that final overall victory, but I have to say Roger Leger's looking very relaxed indeed.
Well, that's a good sign. He feels now that he's done his job these past few days. It's up to the boys now to finish it off, because of course the team cars don't follow the riders around a circuit which measures only 1.6 kilometers. You've got to let the riders go out there and do what they do best, and that's ride a bike fast.
Stuart O'Grady currently sitting in about 8th position there in the red jersey. All that he'll be thinking about at the moment is staying near the front, staying out of danger, and he'll be counting those laps by, because he'll be getting, each time he goes over the finish line, so much closer to the final overall victory in this year's Tour.
Well, the red jersey there, Stuart O'Grady, he seems to have adopted Magnus Backstedt there, the rider in green, as his man to take him everywhere and look after him. That's why I think he would have loved to have seen him win the stage when we got down to Medway. But you know, Paul, all week now, his father, Brian O'Grady, has never seen his son ride a road race before. He's followed this race, and right now he's hoping he's witnessing him winning his first ever stage race. And can you see a happier face than that?
That's my boy.
That is indeed your boy, Brian, and I hope he's paying you the bill for all the film you've taken over these last 9 days of cycling. But Stuart O'Grady has really turned on the style this week. This is a man who has come from a background of track cycling. He's won 12 medals at Commonwealth Games, World Championship and Olympic Games, Paul. But he's never really been a star yet at road racing, yet we all believe that big day's around the corner.
It's not very far off, because this week we really have had confirmation of the ability that this rider has got. All of the time you've got Jens Voigt at the front, struggling now to try and keep a lot of pressure on the front there, but I think he's looking down at his bike as if there is a slight problem there. Look at the speed he's going backwards down the line.
Well, heavens, we could have thought we were seeing a repeat picture of our finish there into Rochester yesterday, because that's exactly what happened. He swung off and disappeared at the back of the race. But I think on this occasion, Paul, he has a technical problem there, and he may well have to stop and get it fixed. Neil Stevens saw it happen. Stevens knows Voigt very well, because until Voigt joined the GAN team, he used to race for the Australian national team, which was a professional team, in case you're wondering why a German can race for a national team from Australia. Now at the front then, Neil Stevens still leads, but there's plenty of more GANs to keep an eye on the frisky little Aussie, because Boorman himself has now got up behind him, and he's going to keep an eye on Neil.
Boorman's really enjoyed this week of racing here. You know, the first stage he got that victory in the prologue, then a stage victory the following day in a road stage, and he's got better as the week's gone on. I think he needed this race for his morale, and I think now he's going to be a lot more confident going forward to the Tour de France, and it really has raised the team spirit riding here, the way they've dominated this race and really dictated the pace of the race.
Heading up towards the bell this time, and this is still Stevens on the front and Boorman there. And this is going to be a humdinger of a sprint. Michael Bennett there, the man who has been the technical man of all these stage finishes, now happy to see this one coming to yet another safe conclusion. It's going to be quite a sprint at this one.
It certainly is. Boorman right at the front there in second position. Magnus Baxted in third position. Stuart O'Grady. This is the ideal lead out. You know, Chris Boorman has got such a big turn of speed now. He's going to keep it very high, and then with about 500 metres to go, I should think he'll swing off and leave it up to Magnus Baxted.
Well, Boorman did a great approach into Rochester as they come around the bend now. And Brian Smith has fallen. Smith had just clipped the corner there. Well, the former British champion, 2 times in fact, completely misjudged that bend as the riders now continue for the finish with Boorman driving on the front, followed by Baxted, always looking over his shoulder to see where O'Grady is.
O'Grady just like a limper. In fact, he's talking to Baxter right now, telling him when he wants to pick the speed up. They've got Boorman on the front. Boorman's going to keep it as high as possible for as long as he can, and then Baxter will take over. Queuing up behind there, a lot of very good sprinters. In 4th position there is Jay Sweet. Right alongside him, Andrea Korf and Graham Miller, the New Zealander, not very far off either.
Well, Andrea Korf, the Festina rider, has come so close every day to winning a stage, but he's either been 2nd, 3rd or 4th. He's now in about 5th place, but right now we've got 3 GAN riders. Are they going to stitch this race up completely? Baxted now launches for the line, and again O'Grady has got his wheel, but this time Jay Sweet is locked into 3rd place. David McKenzie from Australia trying to get on terms. This is going to be a tight one now. And Magnus Baxted, the rider who just lost the stage yesterday, is now taking Stuart O'Grady into the straight. Now, and O'Grady's pulled his foot out. It's all over for O'Grady. It's now Jay Sweet who's going to profit from that, as on the far right comes David McKenzie. O'Grady has made a mess of the finish, but he's still won the Prudential's Tour, and that is superb. So there is Stuart O'Grady, and he's come up and he's congratulated a fellow Australian, and for that matter a fellow South Australian. This is what happened. He was paused here to kick for the line, and he pulled his foot clean off the cleat, and that was the end of that. Jay Sweet didn't need a second invitation. He switched around Stuart O'Grady. He won very, very easily indeed. Stage win number 2 for Jay Sweet from Adelaide. Here's the photo finish, no doubt about the winner. 2nd place Mackenzie and Andrea Korf. 3rd again for him. He didn't win any more stages this week either. Chris Lillywhite is there too, and O'Grady coming home finally, despite that error, in 6th place. What a rider. Carlos de Cruz there in 7th. He's also always been near the top. Chris Boorman getting home in 8th place, hanging on well. Baranowski 10th, and Ekimov finishing there in 12th.
It was a hairy sprint though coming to the last corner, because Stuart O'Grady looked well placed and he pulled his foot out.
Yeah, well, you know, Stuart and Magnus have had a really good workout for the sprints going all week, and when I came around on the last lap there was a lot of jostling for their wheel, and up the back straight I managed to get on it. I was quite confident that I could come from 3rd wheel, but 3rd wheel was the furthest back, and when I went to step off Stewie out of the last corner, he pulled his foot, and from then on it was easy going.
Stuart, that was almost a fairy tale ending there until you pulled your foot out in that last corner.
Yeah, it would have been a fairy tale ending. I mean, all I do is come off his wheel, and I'm pretty sure I could have got very close to winning another stage, but c'est la vie.
C'est la vie indeed. Stuart O'Grady though winning the PruTour by 46 seconds from his friend and teammate Chris Boorman. Baranowski 3rd in Stirling, finishing 3rd overall in this event. Stage winner Ekimov was 12th, Jonathan Waters 15th. And on the podium, the final red jersey is his now. So too is this beautiful piece of Waterford crystal to take home. It's his to keep. Stuart O'Grady all smiles. He led all bar 2 days of this race, and on those 2 days Chris Boorman, his friend, was the leader. Huge crowds in the centre of the City of London. They were treated too to some free champagne, but really there was only one man in charge of this race ever since he took the red jersey at York, Stuart O'Grady, and he also won this race on points.
Yeah, well, this year's been really consistent for me, and it's been a fantastic year, and Roger Leger and the GAN team really looked after me for my first 3 years, so you know, this year's been fantastic, and this is just topping it off.
And the Prudential have already confirmed this race will be back on the calendar again next year, so Stuart O'Grady can come back and defend his title. The race referees have given this a 100% rating as well for its standard of organisation and its police escort. And yes, over the week we did have tragedy. The loss of PC Dave Hopkins will be remembered by this event forever. But from that, it will grow from strength to strength. And next time, it'll be bigger and better. Goodbye.
Eat your heart out, Stuart O'Grady.